I don't know, the next legendaries.
Greetings, Commanders. My name is Pathfinder, and today we're talking about the next chapter in the Age of Annihilus. We recently overhauled the way you play every day with the Age of Annihilus and the new chapter structure. Today, Marvel Strike Force General Manager Ryan Jacobson is back to discuss how things went in Chapter 1. RJ is also going to give his thoughts on some of the community's feedback and might even dish out a teaser for the updates coming to Chapter 2. Whether you're a new player or a veteran, today you'll see why there's no better time to play Marvel Strike Force. Here's Ryan Jacobson. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. There's been a lot happening lately, so I'm a little tired.
In like
but
your
things are
life
good.
or the game or a little bit of both?
I think in the game, but mainly like today. You know, we're doing all these videos. We got a stream coming up tomorrow.
It's exciting times.
Yeah, it's exciting times. And speaking of exciting times, we're coming up on the end of Chapter 1 of the Age of Annihilus. So I want to ask you, first question, what do you think the team could make better for Chapter 2?
I think the first thing I want to see us kind of focus more on is kind of the overall distribution of the seasonal currency. I don't want to say Intel because Intel is going to change right now, right? But I think we internally call it kind of the bag of goods. And what we've been seeing is that there's a significant portion of the player population that's leaving a lot of the seasonal currency on the table. And so we want to try and find a way to better really communicate to the players that this is the opportunity that you have to potentially really get these great rewards, right? And then give you the optionality to kind of how you want to spend that currency. But from what we've seen, the one thing I think we need to focus on is giving more of that seasonal currency out. And then I think secondly, we also know that the Quasar, we did really good in terms of players unlocking Quasar, but the Red Star distribution isn't just really where we would like it to be. So we're still kind of closely monitoring how this last Scourge is gonna go, but that's something else that we're focused on right now.
Okay. And I know that the community also had a lot of feedback on the negative zones. How is the team looking at content for Chapter 2? I know that negative zone was one of the big kind of features of Chapter 1, but I think there's been a little bit of fatigue here towards the end.
A little or a lot?
A lot.
Yeah, it depends on the player, right? No, I would say that anytime we put something new into the game, we have ideas or aspirations of how we think it's going to work versus what the reality is, right? And I would say the negative zone is a perfect example of when it first came out. As a player, I thought it was great. It was puzzly content. It took me a while to get through it. But then quickly realizing I needed to do it for the next 14 days straight, I was like, oh man, this is going to be very time consuming and I have like a job and things to do. So I think there's valuable lessons that we are always going to take away or extract from kind of the playbook that we have, because again, this is a new structure that we're going into. But I would say the negative zone, what we were trying to accomplish, giving some sort of content that is, you know, a little bit trickier, more difficult for players to get through, that was the aspiration of it. But where I think we really fell was kind of how long and the duration and the reruns of it. And so I think those are the valuable lessons we'll pull forward, is kind of just how do we give you something probably a little bit more bite-sized that you go into, you feel good about, that's challenging, but not asking you to do it in the way that we asked you to do it in Chapter 1.
Okay, so not necessarily looking at it from a, you know, I'm going to run this specific campaign every single day, but maybe a shorter time frame or maybe even a different piece of content.
Yeah, or just even the rewards, right? Like as that first run went up, it was tied to leaderboards, so then you felt, again, this pressure to need to play for 14 days straight versus just how as a player can I go in and maybe there's first time rewards, second time rewards, but then I'm done, right? And so then it's also, maybe it's up for, I don't know, 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is. So it's up to the player's discretion of when they want to get through that. But you don't feel that daily pressure to play that content.
Okay, and I guess, you know, kind of a follow-up to some of the feedback that I've seen at least is, you know, new missions come out that are more geared towards teams that aren't completely available yet. Do you think any changes coming as far as that goes?
Yeah, I think that's, again, a great, you know, comment, which is just sometimes what we're thinking in our heads and then the execution falls a little bit flat. We'd love for you to kind of already have the the kind of content ready to go, right? Or the characters and the teams ready to go for that content that is coming out. But yeah, we need to do a better job of ensuring that when we're asking you to do a thing, those characters or that team is already kind of available to you as a player.
Okay, so Chapter 1 is obviously finishing very soon. So I think, another question would be, what's one of the bigger changes that going from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to monitor and look at the data for the red stars, like I talked about a little bit ago. If that's not where we want it to be, because we of course have goals set for these things, then we probably will make some adjustments and pivots in terms of the way that we're going to distribute the red stars for the next legendary, because we definitely want our players to walk away with a fully powered up legendary, and that's yellow stars and red stars. So this last scourge will be really telling in terms of, does it actually achieve those goals or not? And if not, then we will be making some changes to the way that we distribute the red stars.
Okay. And I think another question on maybe more new to mid-game players' minds, how are we going to be addressing the kind of disparity between the amount of shop credits like new players have versus older players? I know that's been a topic that keeps coming up that I wanted to get your take on.
Yeah, we rushed a lot of things out, right? And we knew that shop credits was one of those things that we knew we'd have to revisit. It wasn't that we didn't have the foresight to kind of understand that we were creating something there that we need to go back and fix. There's a lot of things that we want to adjust and change, and I would say that right now there's some plans in the works that we hope to get out really shortly, because we do know that newer players or a reactivated player or someone who's mid-funnel like you kind of described, we don't want them spending the seasonal currency on shop, going back and getting a whole bunch of older gear, or what we kind of call kitchen sink resources. We want them to be buying the latest and greatest things. So we are coming up with some strategies right now to combat that. But I would say probably sometime in Chapter 2, but we know it's something that we're going to address, and we do have some plans on how we're going to address that.
And I think this kind of goes well with that conversation as well. There is going to be a small update with some of the additional currencies that we have, right? So do you want to share a little bit about the V2 of what's going to be consolidated in Chapter 2?
Yeah, I think we're still debating on what we feel comfortable consolidating and or not. There potentially would be Battle World currency that might be consolidated. It might not. We have to think more of the kind of long-term ramifications if we pull it in, right? Because say again, like Battle World as an example, and that currency, if we consolidate it and we put it into a seasonal currency, now are you spending your seasonal currency to potentially unlock null shards when eventually null shards hit that shop? We wouldn't want to necessarily make it into a legacy currency. So we're still having debates right now internally if we feel comfortable making some of those calls, because I do think that we need to be thinking a lot further out in terms of, if we make a decision right here, right now, what does that do to the long-term impact of that mode? And so I would say Battle World's one of the currencies that we're playing around with. Do we want to consolidate that? But right now I would say it's still kind of TBD, where I think there's pros and cons, and right now we haven't aligned on kind of what we want to do with it.
Yeah, and I know that sometime during Chapter 2, there's going to be revamps to kind of the UI in the command center, and hopefully also the legacy shop coming in and actually being that shop. Those are also happening relatively soon.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we talked about this a long time ago, right? And so I think the player expectation was day one, where is this kind of legacy shop? These things take time for us to build, and I think it's also, we want to be really thoughtful and kind of the intentionality that we're putting behind these shops, and how do we make it great from the user standpoint and the experience, because there's a lot in the existing shops, and so trying to just consolidate that all down into one shop. We don't want you scrolling for forever, so how do we build better containers for, say, a team, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot that we're looking into there. As you already kind of touched on with Command Center, we did kind of a small UX update, and we saw a significant uptick in players actually being activated and going into the Command Center. So we still know that there's a lot of players that have this kind of habituation over the 7 years of playing this game, that they're not necessarily going into the new thing the way that we would expect them to. So we're going to continue to monitor and look at where we want to make those improvements. But yeah, I would say, I'm very passionate about us getting the kind of legacy shop out as quickly as possible, but I also think that it needs to be done in a very kind of way that's very player friendly for the existing player base and as well as newer players coming in, so that they kind of know what this shop looks like and what it should feel like.
Okay. Well, before we go on, don't forget to like the video and hit the bell and subscribe. What was your favorite thing about Chapter 1, and what is something that the game team should be aware of to work on for future chapters? We would love to know in the comments. So RJ, I was originally going to ask what your Danger Room high score was, but let's go with something else instead. What's something that you promised you wouldn't spoil today, but we all know you're going to because you're the boss and you can do whatever you want. So, got any spoilers for us today?
Danger Room, though, that would have been a good one. So I actually have to go back and think of like what was my high score. I would say my favorite mod though would be Barrel of Monkeys. Like that one was awesome. So I again applaud the team on kind of all of the Easter eggs that they've put in it so far. I can't wait to see what we do with that mode in the future. I don't know. The next legendary is Blastar. I don't know if that's a spoiler.
That is indeed a spoiler.
We have a whole bunch of Spider-Man villains coming into the game. I know there's a player or someone who's constantly on YouTube and Instagram demanding Sandman. I'm going to just state right now it's not Sandman, so sorry, apologies. We don't know how to get that character into the game just because of the complexity around that character. We would love to see him in the game, but I would say there's some really cool Spider-Man villains that have yet to hit the game, and so those will also be coming out sometime in the near future. One of them, I think, is one of the most iconic kind of Marvel covers, in my opinion, and so I can't wait till that character gets into the game. And there's one that's really complex in terms of like, wait, why is this guy a Spider-Man? Is he not a Spider-Man? He's a villain. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that I think the characters and combat team is working on. I know Matt loves when I spoil everything, so yeah, I definitely think I'm super excited about the next legendary, Blastar, and he's coming in the game real soon.
Yeah, Matt told me himself that he loves it when you spoil things early.
We should spoil more then, right? Like we should just have like a session where it's just spoilers.
Oh, we could make a whole Strikespot about that.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Perfect. Well, I'll ask one bonus question, and I didn't even put this on the sheet that I gave you. So, what's your most anticipated thing in Chapter 2 that we're going to be doing?
With Chapter 2, man, there's a lot of things there because there's so many features that are going to start to come into Chapter 2. There's a lot of improvements that we just talked about, like the shop stuff that we hope to get in as soon as possible. But for me, as a player who tries to really communicate as much as humanly possible inside the game and outside of the game, Discord's one of the things that I really am looking forward to kind of getting into the game, just because I think it's such a powerful tool that I think a lot of us use even in our normal day-to-day lives. Yeah. So having it in the game and then giving a lot of those really alliance leaders or war captains more tools at their disposal that's in client versus going outside of the client, I think is a massive win for us. And then I think there's a slew of kind of quality of life improvements that are going to go into the game that I think should hopefully get players really excited. So I think there's a ton of stuff, and then I think, again, we're going to continually learn from how we better operate this structure moving forward. And so I also look for all those learnings and kind of what we pull forward and how do we constantly iterate to make this game better.
Okay. Wrapping things up today, thanks for joining us. Talk about Chapter 2. It's always appreciated, and I know that the community appreciates it too.
Thanks for having me. I always love to be here. Always a good time.
Yeah, well, after learning about the changes we're making, what are you most excited for in Chapter 2? And if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and join us on Discord. Link will be in the description. Would love to chat with you over there. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Strikespot. Greetings, Commanders. My name is Pathfinder, and today we're talking about the next stage in the I already messed up. Talking about the next age in the next age. Any, Oh, okay. There's a plane. Whether you're a new player or a veteran today, you'll see why there's no better time to play Marvel Strike Force.